Welcome back to NTV News First Edition. Alberta's Premier Danielle Smith has outlined a series of changes coming for transgender young people. Alberta is the latest province to address the policy surrounding sexual identity and education and the role parents should play in them.
In my view, one of the greatest responsibilities we as parents, teachers, and community leaders have is to preserve for our children the right to grow and develop into mature adults so that they are better prepared to make the most impactful decisions affecting their lives.
Now, among those proposed changes, schools will need parental consent for students 15 years of age and under who want to change their names or their pronouns. Gender-affirming surgery will be banned for those 17 and under. Diversity and inclusion advocates are condemning these changes.
I can't even begin to imagine what this will do to those children who need that care. There will be children, there'll be youth, there will be people who will die because of this. And the blood is on the hands of this government.
Well, joining me now to discuss Alberta's new proposed transgender rules is Dr. Janine Hubbard with this week's Get Psyched with Dr. Janine. I should apologize at the onset. I know this is a pretty heavy and detailed conversation, certainly far too much to get in just a couple of minutes. So I apologize to you and our viewers for doing this in such a condensed form. But first off, how surprised were you when you heard about this, and what's been your initial reaction?
I was angry. This morning when I first saw it, I was very angry for a couple of reasons. It's unnecessary. There are well-established evidence-based guidelines regarding the medical management and psychological management of trans individuals. So that's the medical consensus. That's evidence-based. That's not government-dictated. And unfortunately, what we see in this is a way that it perpetuates a lot of the misconceptions and myths and really risks increasing stigma towards an already marginalized population.
You talk about misconceptions, so let's deal with those. What are the misconceptions about trans youth?
And again, in a very succinct way, there's a lot of people who believe trans means an individual who is born of one gender who wishes to fully transition into an individual of the opposite gender in terms of physiology, in terms of presentation. That is one segment, and even again, if you look at adult individuals who present as trans, very many of them have absolutely no interest in anything surgical. It can start from the continuum of wanting to present in perhaps a more gender-neutral way, perhaps less feminized clothing or less masculinized clothing, haircuts, use of makeup or not, use of pronouns and names, and things that really are kind of very transitory as our youth explore. How do I want to present to the world? What makes me feel comfortable? What makes me feel accepted?
So then the next question kind of seems irrelevant in some ways, but what if, we hear it all the time, what if my child changes their mind?
Well, and here's the thing that, again, some of these guidelines perpetuate misunderstandings. Most of the interventions and treatment that we look at for youth are temporary, because we know that one of the most important stages that our youth go through is identity formation. And you explore a little bit and you figure out, maybe I do present as very feminine, maybe I do present as more masculine. How do I wish to present myself to the world? And that's a period of flux and change. So for some of our individuals, especially the ones who, quite frankly, both they and their parents have known since the age of about 3, that they very much are presenting as trans, we do preventative care by introducing things like puberty blockers that are not permanent. They temporarily delay the onset of puberty until such a time as informed, more adult decisions can be made. And we use those with other kids. We use those with kids who have precocious puberty. These are things that are temporary. Same thing, a haircut, clothing style, wearing a binder, asking to be referred to by a particular name. Those are all temporary. There are no long-lasting effects, and what we have found is that kids, for the most part, are incredibly accepting of different presentations at different times.
So why is all of this so important for us to address?
It's because if we don't address it, the risks that are involved, We know that this is a population that has one of the highest rates of suicide, has one of the highest rates of gender-based violence, particularly, again, if you happen to be of non-Caucasian presentation. We know that the stigma and this kind of legislation can either keep people in the closet far more longer, or those who do decide to present, they feel that they have to keep up that identity because they've had to go through this many steps.
Okay, we have about 90 seconds left. While you've been chatting, we've been putting up some website addresses. So if people want more information, they can go to either of those. But you know, parents are watching tonight, and you know, this may all be kind of parent-driven. And what if a parent says, "But I want to know. I want to know if my child is presenting differently or wants all of the things that you just mentioned, and maybe they're too afraid to tell me, but I want to know." What do you say to parents?
And I appreciate that position. And the reality is most kids who come from safe, stable, supportive households will talk to you about it when they're ready. But rejection by parents is one of the most catastrophic events that can happen in a youth's life. And so being able to experiment and explore before deciding that, yes, this is how I feel and I feel very strongly about it. Rejection from a peer or rejection from a teacher, or, you know, discussions with the cool uncle or the coach or someone where they feel that they can explore some of those before risking that most valuable relationship, which is with their parents. And I think the big message I have from all of this is, listen, we have research that shows simply calling somebody by their preferred name or their genders decreases their risk of suicide and increases their mental health dramatically. And in the end, all any of us want is to feel heard, feel seen, feel understood, and feel comfortable presenting ourselves to the world. And that's all that we're looking at here. And again, the Rainbow Health has all those medical guidelines. That's the evidence. It's there. We don't need this kind of legislation.
All right, Dr. Janine Hubbard, thank you so much for doing this in such a short period of time. If we need to continue this, of course we can next week. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks, Tony.
Apologize.